there's farmers that become the villain. If this was a Disney movie and we were talking about soil, there's a lot of these farmers that put into the villain category, and they're not. They just need to be given a good, viable way to steward. And now that's being given to them. And it's pretty much any pre-war textbook that talks about organic stewardship. And so they're re-embracing this. It's kind of a renaissance of old, which is exciting.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter.
Normally I do an intro, but let's just keep recording where we are, which is basically, why don't you talk more about, this sort of like, I'm ADHD too, right? I'm ADHD, you're ADD, right? And being on those social media streams can be distracting, overwhelming, disconcerting. I find them confusing. Like physically, I find them confusing on my phone. Like I'm supposed to, whatever. My social media crew laughs at me all the time, and I deserve it. I deserve it. So, but you were saying what you choose now is?
Well, I've deleted everything that's got a scroll off of my phone, because what I would find is that I would go out and then I would be just like, if I had like an extra 5 seconds, I'd open my phone and just be like getting a little drip of dopamine. And then it's kind of like, I don't even know what I'm scrolling through or why. And so I got real purposeful on that. I subscribe to things that educate me and inspire me and connect me to the other people that I'm interested in my life. And so I'm getting market research. There's a couple of real estate related producers that are there. And so when I do scroll, I'm purposeful, like, in the evening or something like that. Instead of watching Game of Thrones 3 or whatever, or the latest thing on Netflix, you can spend a little bit of time, and then the stuff that comes in those short little drips is there. But then also, I really noticed that myself and a lot of my family, our attention span was growing shorter and shorter and shorter. And so I make time for the longer trains of thought, like reading a book, like playing a game of chess. And so short little bursts of dopamine are not inherently evil, but they can be. And then we were talking about even the TikTokification of even LinkedIn, to where now it's just the scrolly scroll. And so making time for that and being purposeful with it is where I land. And then that's been helpful so far.
And I honestly, I wouldn't even participate with it in general, except I need to do it for professional reasons, right? Like we both need to be able to maintain our brand and what it is that we're trying to bring to the world, right? And so therefore I'm still engaging with it. We're talking about reels, right? That's how we got started on this conversation, was creating reels. And so I think that's I try not to. I try not to, except for professional reasons. Like I said, I find it overwhelming, and in the profession, the thing that I have to do is I have to be able to connect with people and build my brand. And LinkedIn is the easiest for me to be able to do that. The most concrete.
Yeah, no, I think both are important. And when you get to, it's one of the things I like about the innovations in the industrial hemp space. I mean, we're hemp, for crying out loud. You can't get more clickbaity than building a house with marijuana. I do not mind that at all, because I like the attention. I will never not get a conversation. I don't mind the chuckle from Scooby and Shaggy about what happens if the house catches on fire. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And so it's one of those things that really makes me lean into the building material as a whole, because how many cocktail parties are you going to go to and talk about insulation?
No, I agree. So at this point, let's launch off into, so how did you go from being a young man to being in the hemp field, which I think is probably people who've known you for a while would be surprised that was the right turn you made. So tell us your background real quick.
I literally go back to, I remember it clear as day. We were doing a research project. It was me and two classmates researching the San Antonio Austin corridor and how it was going to grow together to be the next Los Angeles or large metropolitan area. And what I know is that our family's farm where I lived was right on the major artery. We fronted I-35. And so I literally watched these two metropolitan areas grow together in my backyard, and I knew what that would be, and I knew what that would mean, and I started paying attention in the seventh grade. And so you'll go back even further to what stirred my entrepreneurial spirits, and it was before I even knew all about what sex was, but we raised livestock. And we had 4-H projects. Many of your listeners have 4-H projects and know what that means. But like I said, didn't know much about what sex was, but I had the mommy sheep. But I knew a mommy sheep and a daddy sheep made a baby sheep. And I had the baby sheep and I sold the baby sheep. And then I had the money in my hand. And then I looked up at my dad and I go, Dad, how fast till they can do that again? And I was hooked. I enjoyed enterprising effort. Anything where 1 + 1 could equal 3, I would vote myself the most likely person to have a lemonade stand if I lived in a neighborhood. And so I've always enjoyed how to profit from that. Couple that with the just dynamic growth in this real estate market. And I've always really enjoyed real estate and how that could work because I saw what it did for my family.
So that's great, and that's real estate market, and that's understanding entrepreneurship. So how did you cross over into the hemp or cannabis space?
Well, clickbait, quite honestly. We were talking about we have habits to where we realize when Netflix first came out, I would tease you for binge watching a series. Well, then I forget what it was, but I found it, and then one of my kids was walking through the living room, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're like, you found a show you like. And then so I felt my brain turning into jello, and I was like, all right, enough of that. And then I was like, I'll just watch something on YouTube that interests me. It's kind of like watching a documentary is justifiable, right? And so I would find things that would interest me, and then lo and behold, there was building materials about making building materials with industrial hemp. Now, I've always enjoyed business trends. I've been very fortunate. I've been able to look around corners, and I've been able to spot trends and benefit from those trends. Like when the financial crisis happened in 2008, I started positioning myself in that early in 2007 because I saw it coming. And so I was looking for what's the next thing. And then I saw the 2018 Farm Bill legalize industrial hemp to be cultivated. And I knew that was a big deal. It was like we just discovered trees. And so I started learning more about the crop and how it was coming on as a crop. And then I started finding how to use it as a building material. And then this was right at the time when the progression of my real estate career was where I wanted to build and hold long-term assets for our family. And then everything merged together. And so in the material selection, I took everything that was part of my fix and flip career, everything that I knew went wrong that was going to need to be repaired or replaced within 10 to 20 years. And it's a lot. There's a lot wrong in the fix and flip world that we discover when it's demo day. Now, I've watched my share of HGTV, and I have the little hashtag demo day from Chip and JoJo, and I love all the tearing down walls, and I've got video of my son when he was a little kid with a sledgehammer, and we've had fun with that. But it's like, what if I didn't have to tear down that in the first place? And then that's where some of these older building techniques came into play. And that's what Hempcrete is. It's a modern twist on an ancient technology, and it uses stuff that goes back to Greece and Italy and, all these old buildings that are hundreds of years old that don't need to be repaired because they are a stone, and then they're basically going to last as long as a stone. And so that combine that with the farm bill and everything like that, everything kind of merged together. And a couple of hundred YouTube hours later, I've got delusions of grandeur, and I'm finishing up a first permitted house in San Antonio, and looking to do a couple hundred more.
So okay, that's fascinating. Thank you very much. That was lovely said, and I appreciate it. And I can see how in your background, how you're growing up as a farm boy, like literally, and then being able to understand hemp. And I loved your statement of like, oh, we've just discovered trees. It's like, oh, that's great. I love it. And you put those two together and it's a natural for you, right? There's no hesitation for you in understanding farming around a new product brand called hemp. Help me understand why this product is actually old, and you go all the way back to like ancient Rome to have that, when you compare that. Get deeper into that piece.
Yeah, and so the connection goes back now in recent history, like within rewind 100 years ago, and then there was the effort to make hemp a naughty plant, and it became naughty, and we threw the baby out with the bathwater. And so there's the cannabinoid side, which is marijuana, CBD, all of the stuff that makes the music sound good, that makes medicine, and there's a lot of benefit and enjoyment that goes along with that part of the plant. But there's a whole rest of the plant as well that's not naughty, just useful. And so that's the fiber for textile, and then the woody part of the plant is what you use for hempcrete. Now, hempcrete's the main focus that I have. There's a couple of other building products that utilize other parts of the plant, but the reason that hempcrete is so good is because it's got air pockets. Air pockets are what make good insulation, and so this plant grows, 15 feet tall in 90 to 120 days. The stem is going to have air pockets in it when it does that. And so if you take those woody parts of the plant, mix it with lime and water, now it basically petrifies back into a stone, but now it has air pockets. And so when you mix it up, the way I describe it, it's about the same consistency of oatmeal cookie dough, so that you get a good visualization of what this is like in handling it on a job site. So if you take the oatmeal cookie dough equivalent and then form it into a wall and take those forms away and then keep doing that until you have a whole wall, well, now you've got a house built with hempcrete. And so all of those air pockets will petrify, that calcification. And this was developed when these several hundred-year-old homes that were in Europe, the wattle and daub style, where they just took stuff and packed it in amongst these fantastic timber frame houses. And then when cement came on board, this is hard, this is robust, and they started using Portland cement to repair those. But then Portland cement, though it has its place in the world, was holding moisture against these timber frames. And so then you were getting rot. And so you couldn't use that. So then now what do we use? And then that was right about the time where they said, let's mix this with hemp because of the way it will perform. And that's how hempcrete recently came onto the scene. And it's got roots going back further than that. But it's really, it all stems more in the use of lime in construction than it does hemp in construction. And then you can make the equivalent of hempcrete with bamboo or canaf or sunflowers or XYZ organic material. If you mix it with lime and put it together, it's going to petrify in place, much like hempcrete does. Hempcrete is just a good way to do it nowadays because of the crop.
Well, yeah, because of the crop and also the speed of its growth. I mean, when you described to me it's a 15-foot plant and it's going to grow, I assume, in about to 15 feet, you said, I think, in a year or 18 months?
90 to 120 days.
Thank you. See, that's how long my hearing, I was like, so couldn't believe the number. I didn't even, like 90 to 20 days. Like that's when you talk about a renewable resource and the capacity to be able to keep building it and keep using it and keep getting it. And it literally grows versus us digging for cement and digging for rock. I mean, it just seems to me like it's efficient, it's effective. It probably is also lighter. It's easier to transport. You mix it with lime, and then you're able to have it petrify in place, and you have better insulation. I mean, am I getting it right? Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, you're thinking, oh my gosh, it checks everybody's check boxes. That's the phrase that yeah, it's, and now here's the thing that I like. Usually your economic and your ecological interests are adversarial. If you're having something that is economically profitable, it's usually at the sacrifice of environmental stewardship and vice versa. One is an inverse relationship to the other. What I learned long ago in a previous lifetime in the organics world is that the most profitable way to do things is often the right way to do things. You just have to have a long range vision of it all. And so this is one of those things to where it is both ecological and the stewardship side of things, and it's the most profitable because I'm brutally pragmatic on all of my decisions because I'm building to hold these as investment properties. And so if it doesn't earn its keep, it's out the door. I love environmental stewardship, but if it doesn't make dollars and cents, then it doesn't make sense.
That makes sense. And I love that description, and that's perfect. And I can't tell you, Ray, I am so enjoying your depth of knowledge on this. Like, I've never heard this topic before. This is new to me. That's why I was like, oh, when I was interviewing, when I was having that meet and greet call with you, I'm like, oh no, we got to get this on tape. Like this is cool. And it's a cutting edge industry I know nothing about. And the best way to get myself educated is to invite you on my podcast so that I'm educating myself and my listeners at the same time. So now, what this is beautiful is that hemp grows on land, which is also known as real estate, right? And so there is an actual easy crossover between hemp and real estate. So why don't you go a little deeper into how your current secret sauce is about hemp and the land underneath it?
Well, going back to all of the check boxes that this application checks, yes, it is. There's embodied carbon and the environmental stewardship, and there's the efficiency of the actual built house. But when you go further back to the agronomy side, at the farm level, not just at the farm level, but at the soil level of the farm, the agronomy, the farming practices that go into raising this plant are of the highest levels of stewardship. I'll draw a comparison with cotton. A lot of people like to hate on cotton because how it leaches from the soil, and it's a proper naughty boy. Okay, it's naughty. It does naughty things. It does give us good clothing and good benefits like that. And then, depending on the flavor of conspiracy theory that you like, cotton was part of what got hemp outlawed in the first place. So I'll put that out there for your fun and enjoyment, and people can have fun going to sleep by the conspiracy theories on YouTube about cotton and hemp and how it was made illegal. But as a comparison to a crop where one leaches out, the other one puts back in. And so if you grew up on a farm, you know about rotation crops, you know about cover crops, you know about legumes and how they pull nitrogen from the air, fix it into the soil to where that can be used for the fertilizer input for your next crop. So instead of having to go to the co-op or the fertilizer supply and buy an input and put that on as a cost per acre of your input raising the crop, you can just have the stewardship of nature, and then that is your input, letting nature under your stewardship provide what it can provide without needing to go spend money and put it in there and squirt things and put the applications on there. Because what the big thing that is being found is that when you disturb that soil food web, it's all the other microbiology into the soil. Well, then now if you use one shortcut to fix one problem, you've created several other problems. And so at the agronomy level, it fixes all of that. Now you can grow hemp the wrong way. You can grow hemp the right way. It's just like many other crops. And we're learning a lot about that, like low and no-till, and the different rotations and the stewardship of the soil and the soil food web and all of that. But the thing that I like, and that a lot of the farmers like who are looking at this, it benefits their soil. Their soil is their livelihood. And if they find something that stewards that at a high level, it's going to be of peak interest. And so the people are coming in like that.
So if I had a piece, just because I'm curious now, if I had a piece of land and I was growing a crop that bleached out the land, or leached, I think leached is the right word, leached out the minerals from the land, do I use a crop like a hemp to be able to dig it back into the earth? Can I harvest part of that crop and use part of that crop to dig it back into the earth to regenerate the earth? Or are you talking about just hemp as a singular crop can grow over and over and over again in the same piece of land if you're thinking about the microbiomes and only using a portion of it to be able to then use itself to fertilize its next round? Am I saying it correctly, Ray? This is outside of my area of expertise. So
I would put it in the what does nature like? Nature likes diversity. You don't ever go out into a meadow and find one type of grass or one type. There's always one. There's several different things complementing one another, and so monocropping is one of those things that when you go into the prairie land, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, the usual suspects in the Midwest, and you had that prairie that was developed over eons to have that rich soil food web. Now, if you go out there and you monocrop and you go corn, and then you go corn, and then you go corn, you're going to have success, and you're going to have success because of the biodiversity that was there for hundreds of years. Now, there'll come a point in time where you need to have that biodiversity that you have not had, and then now you need to have rotations in, and you need to do other things. And there's other ways to know about other things to know about monocropping that are just that are bad that can be overcome. Now, if you're going to farm 1,000 acres, you don't want to be out there with a hand sickle, and so okay, you want to plant all of the one thing and then plant all of another thing. And if we're going to use big tractors on big acres, then there's things you have to do. And that's what it takes if you want a bag of potato chips to be under $20. And so because I want a bag of potato chips to be under $20, I think there's things that can be done. And you can do the right things at scale if you've got a brain and you use it. And then that's where a lot of the large scale farmers are leaning into this. There's farmers that become the villain. If this was a Disney movie and we were talking about soil, there's a lot of these farmers that put into the villain category, and they're not. They just need to be given a good, viable way to steward. And now that's being given to them, and it's pretty much any post or any pre-war textbook talks about organic stewardship, and so they're re-embracing this. It's kind of a renaissance of old, which is exciting, and so I like the farmers being able to find stuff like that because it was really getting problematic.
So where do you play in the hemp field? So do you play in the land? Do you play in the product? Do you play on the concrete side? Like, where does your company play in this?
This is a great question because I love it all. Now, for people who are finding this for the first time, what's going to happen is you're going to love it all. You're going to go a mile wide and an inch deep, and then you'll burn out, and then you won't do anything. And so I do enjoy the agronomy side. That's not my wheelhouse. I do enjoy everything until it becomes a building material. And then now, once it becomes a real estate assets that generate income, that's my little box. That's where you and I live as far as we want to generate assets that generate income, and then we want to repeat that process. And then we do deals for profit and share the profits with our investors. Period. That's our wheelhouse. Now, we're going to like and love all the other things. We're going to like textiles. I have colleagues that are in the plastics side of this because you can micronize this and then turn it into other industrial products. And so now my wheelhouse on the manufacturing side, on the processing side, on the farming side is, can I put together puzzle pieces to where 1 + 1 = 3, on a piece of real estate or in a piece of real estate to where I can then package and sell that math equation. And so where you and I have gone through own a piece of real estate, make a profit holding as a rental property, or do something to add value or change its use, and then we realize a profit through a sale. So we've done all of that, and then the natural progression of that is the capital stack. Doing a syndication, a fund, some sort of scenario to where the money's in the money. Doing XYZ with real estate is just something for money to do. That's my approach. I'll use the example of a processing facility, which is a lot like what would happen at a grain elevator or a co-op. If you're driving through the Midwest and you see the big grain elevators, they're going to be like a mill or something like that. And then I tell people, imagine we're flying in an airplane over that farm country, and then you see that processing facility. How I look at it is that I look at that processing facility that takes a raw agricultural product and turns it into an industrial use product. I look at that as a magic box on the landscape. And then you can put $1 in the magic box, and then more than $1 comes out of the magic box. Now it's up to me to put together a business structure to where multiple people can invest in that magic box. And so those are very crude, simplistic, childlike terms, but everybody's like, oh, okay, I get it. And so that's the lane that I've chosen. And the reason I chose it is because there are so many opportunities that all they need is funding. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. 1 + 1 will equal 3 if I just had the money for 1 + 1. And then you can go idea after idea after idea. And then as long as they're tied back to real estate, so there's a nice stable asset in there. Done well, the investment scenarios that I put together should be boring. It should be exciting how boring they are.
Yes. And so let me repeat it back in a way just to make sure I've got it straight and just sort of, simplify it and make it concrete for my listeners. So basically, you really step in on the financial side because you understand the industry, you understand the land, you understand the plant, you understand the process of taking that plant and making it hempcrete. You understand those movements. And where you are is that you're like, okay, since I understand it, each of those pieces do need capital in order to continue to move it forward. And you're more like, okay, capital, come on, let's put it into this box of this particular piece. But it sounds like one of the things, and for me as an investor, that's valuable but it's always not securitized necessarily by hemp. It's securitized by land. It's securitized by a piece of physical real estate.
Right, and I'll use the CBD example is because when, so the Farm Bill passed 2018. Then there was what people call the green rush, which was like this green equivalent to a gold rush going into processing for CBD. And there was a big glut in the plants were worth more than the ground they were planted in. And so that's something that you need to really watch out for. But a lot of the investment was capital intensive into equipment. Now, this is the processing equipment that would go into taking that raw material plant and then extracting the cannabinoids out of it. Very similar to now in processing, you mechanically break up and decord and do all these other things with the fiber grain side of the plant, but you can attach all that investment into the real estate where it resides. Money doesn't like to go into things that can be put on a truck and carted away. Money likes to go into things that are permanent, fixed, real. That's why I do the houses, because the houses once built are permanent. Now, like if there's an investment going into processing facility, there's the processing facility, yes, But all that equipment in there in the commercial realm, that can be taken away, and it's not part of the real estate unless you declare it or go through an official process, and which is impossible with commercial fixtures. And so, that's a little bit of a crossover. But if you do enough of the residential real estate, what that will do is that will create a hand that reaches in to the commercial side and pulls it forward. For example, if you're going to create a commercial process that makes agricultural hemp into a building product for houses, right? How many houses do you need to build to pay for that processing equipment? Let's just say it's 200 houses per year. That's a gettable get. And so if you step over here and then you put together a capital scenario to where those that's like one to a handful of developments that need to go in. And so that's like one, maybe two or three builders doing that. And then that volume can be covered. And then that whole commercial facility with a purchase order can go to a bank and get bank financing to do what they're doing. They don't need to go high risk investment money. They can go straight up bank financing because they've got this over here. And the connection of one dot to the other dot makes the performance of both, because you couldn't do one without the other.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I love how it ties it together. And thank you for the example of like you kind of pull it forward, kind of pull it out. And yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so what do you think are the possible weaknesses, or what's your industry facing? Like, is it going to continue to grow? I mean, Hempcrete is new in my mind as a building material, right? So to me, it feels like there's a lot of rosiness on the horizon, but what are some limitations or problems it might run into, whether it's on the land side, the plant side, the actual Hempcrete side?
The good thing is it's a sexy topic. There's no way around the sex appeal of, we're the coolest kids at the party when we're talking about building houses with fluffy marijuana concrete. All right. It's just, we're the cool kids. There's no way around that. All right. So that's the advantage. So put that aside. Now, the biggest disadvantage is more of a disadvantage of human nature. And then that goes back to the old parable about the mother and the daughter preparing the ham for the holiday meal, and goes to cut the ends off the ham. You know the one I'm talking about? Where it's just like, make sure and cut the ends off the ham. And it's like, well, Mom, why do we cut the ends off the ham before we put it in the oven? It's like, I don't know. Let me ask Grandma. And so she calls up Grandma, and then I was like, why do we do this? Like, I don't know. That's what my mom always did. And they call up Great Grandma. And it's like, why do we always do that? It's like, well, my pan was too short, so I always had to. And so, if you want to innovate in construction, and it's not the way it's normally done, good luck. You could have a better scenario that is cheaper and faster and true, all the things that you would need to be disruptive, but you don't have the trades to do it. Not going to happen. If it's a pain in anyone's neck to do something slightly different, that person that's a project manager has 100 other things to worry about that day alone, let alone this new innovative building material. Quit talking to me. We've got to be able to innovate, create trades. I mean, creating a trade for a Hempcrete installer is one of the things that I have a business avenue for doing. I have a school to teach tradespeople how to install this stuff that will engage with builders, architects, engineers, and subcontractors. That's a big ask for somebody to do one little bitty innovation. Now, why am I doing all that? Is because I see this coming on as an entire crop. I'm entire crop motivated. If this were just something else to do with corn, no. But it's coming on as a new crop, and there's blue oceans of opportunity, and that's intoxicating.
That makes perfect sense. And it really is about being able to educate, being able to get people comfortable with it. It's the good news is that innovations are integrating faster and faster. And I think it used to be that it took 40 years, almost 2 generations, to be able to take on a new innovation. But ever since the internet, we have found that number has been getting faster and faster and shorter and shorter. And it used to take, I don't know if it's 7 years, to be able to have a new innovation actually pass through the population enough that most of the population was now involved, or at least understood what it was. So the information age has really helped to move that forward. And be great, because it feels to me like Hempcrete really is one of those new innovations that does check a lot of boxes. And it is more about getting over the naughty and getting over the lack of knowledge, right? Is it naughty to use Hempcrete? How do I use it? How do I make it work? When you say I just put forms and I pour I'm not placing blocks like I would if I was a stonemason, right? I'm using, concrete blocks to be able to build my, so upset I almost fall over. I'm using concrete blocks in order to build my house, or brick. I know those. I know how.
And you can make blocks like this. And so,
because your description is that it's blocks, right? I'm using effectively Hempcrete, but I'm pouring it on site. Or I could actually build blocks and bring blocks from somewhere else, it sounds like.
right. And then you're able to take existing trades and just say, okay, we're going to go up against here. It's not load bearing, so don't do this, but everything else, same as what you need. I need square, true, and plumb. Here we go. Boom, trowels are moving. And so you can incorporate into existing trades a lot. And then that's a benefit. And then one of the other things that's a market trend. You and I are both students of market trends, and the millennials are, say what we want about them, roll our eyes all we want about them. Millennials want the right things for the right reasons. And then back to it, checking everybody's check boxes. They want a healthier home, and then they want the environmental stewardship. Those two big things alone, healthy for the environment and healthy for yourselves. If COVID taught us anything, it's how we feel being cooped up in our house all the time. And then, if you have any sick house syndrome or off-gassing from, that sweet new car smell or the new carpet smell, the sweet aroma of formaldehyde is what that is. And we've just mentally associated it with new carpet. And so it's a positive smell, but it's really killing us. And then millennials are waking up to that. Now, so you've got this large demographic that wants the right things for the right reasons. And then now we're America. We don't care what the market wants. We're going to get whatever it wants to the market. And so it's a perfect storm of them wanting the right things for the right reasons. And now we've got something that we can deliver. And it's something to where kitchens and bathrooms will still have a bigger influence in selling a house than anything. It trumps quality or anything else. However, if there's a whole subdivision that is done in this paradigm of environmental stewardship and health and stuff like that, that is a selling point for that whole subdivision. I think this basic paradigm shift into this character trait is something that is some people could dismiss it as a shtick or a gimmick. Fine. All right. If you're going to greenwash your project, that's fine. I sell green paint. And you know what the project is at the end of the day? It's still effectively green. It hasn't been greenwashed to the point where it's only paint. It's effectively green. This is something to where, and not just by a little bit, we're talking about increasing the efficiencies of that house over 30% in its consumption, let alone its embodied carbon with what's in the walls. And so there are big splashes that are going to be made. And then what will happen is it will become difficult to compete if you don't incorporate it because the advantages are so much. But that's going to take a little bit.
It's going to take a little bit for that really get integrated. It really is about just integrating the new technology. So Tell me about a deal that went wrong, if you can think of that. That's one of the questions. Tell me about a deal that went wrong and how you were involved in getting it fixed, or how it got fixed.
I'll start with the best and the worst part about utilizing hemp as a new innovative building technology, and that's the people. It really stirs people's emotions. I defy you to go to any other job site anywhere and have people enthusiastically discussing the building materials and how it is a driving passion for their life on the job site. Okay, you just don't have that conversation over your barbecue sandwich. And so now I had this prototype. So I was building the prototype so that we could have a success story that we could point at and say, now we build one so that we can build 100. That was the mantra. And so then there was a lot of people that were interested. And there are a lot of really good people that are not meant to be good construction workers. And so we had a lot of humanity and a lot of human beings coming onto our job site. And then what I found, and I've done a lot of these workshops, and then I've gotten a real keen sense of who works in construction and who hasn't. And then because when the tools are on, so to speak, there's a vibration frequency of everybody who does work construction. What's next, boss? Where am I? What do you need? What do you do? It's like waiting on you. Those types of things are happening where somebody who is not, they're just so excited about it that they're talking to the person next to them who's also supposed to be working, and so it doesn't work. And so that was a blessing and a curse. I had a lot of people on our prototype project, so it was great to have those conversations, to have those relationships being built, but at the end of the day, everybody had to go. And then we had to get high frequency construction producers to finish things out, and we did, and so now things are finished out. But that's just a matter of establishing your systems and knowing what's what. Now, when I do a workshop, there's usually the first form, we pack it all in, and then we remove the board, and everybody get your cameras ready, and there's like a ooh, and I even tell people, it's like, everybody ready, 1, 2, 3, and I say ooh, and everybody ooh, and then so once people who aren't going in this as a trade ooh and ah one time, they're going to talk to the other people about design functions and features and stuff like that, and then they're not going to do much work. But the people who are really wanting to go into it are going to get in there hard and get their hands dirty and go, how do we really make production doing this? And then that's who the rest of my workshop is for. But I don't delude myself or have any delusions of grandeur that all of the architects are going to come together. They're going to have architect conversations. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to create. They're not supposed to get things done. And so that was something about the right butts in the right seats, doing the right thing, and then that was huge.
Yeah, and it moved it forward, especially when you're dealing with a new model like this. That's good story. I mean, the primary piece of it is, in learning a lesson for yourself and for the listeners, is recognizing when something isn't going right. Recognizing that you weren't getting that hum. You could feel that it wasn't happening. You could feel that people were actually getting in the way unintentionally, right, of actually making this project work, and then being able to pull it and just go, no, we got to pull it. We got to pull them. We got to pull this conversation. We really need to find people who are more capable of focusing and getting to the bottom line, because it's still a construction project. We're still going somewhere. We're not just, we're not just hanging out here trying to build a prototype. We're actually trying to build something to get it finished, because there's still usefulness for that product and being able to use it as your example. So I think the lesson is being able to pull your team if your team isn't working. And that's true for everybody, regardless of whether it's Hempcrete or regular brick, or whether it's a rehab, or whether it's a ground up development.
Yeah, the right people in the right seats doing the right thing is huge. And then it's almost like I could imagine myself having a scanner that I would, boop, 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 scan it in front of somebody, and then you could tell if they were vibrating at the creative frequency, and just or if they were in the production frequency, and then you divide out from there.
We all want that scanner. That may be the next thing that should be created is that scanner, right? Um, so how do people want to take your classes so they can learn how to actually work with Hempcrete and therefore get this out there as a bigger understanding and better knowledge, or they want to invest in a property or a project that you have going that is involved in Hempcrete? How do they get a hold of you? How do they ask you questions?
Well, we started the school, and that's hempbuildschool.com, and then that's got the current offerings. Now, we went through a couple of renditions of having a mastermind group to where people could come in, and then that was people who wanted to build their own house, and several have, people who want to do production building, and then they're developing scenarios to where there's a production builder who's part of our group that they've got 1,000 houses slated to be built, and so we're really excited about what's happening. But going through that and the various offerings, everything starts with getting your hands on it. And then I might add a gloved hand because it is kind of alkalinic and it can hurt your hands. But getting your gloved hand in this material is something that is very no matter what your application, whether you're on the design side or the fulfillment side, hands-on is first. Now, we do a lot of workshops, and then just follow us along, and then that'll get you take what you've seen on YouTube and put it into reality, and light bulbs will start going off. You'll figure out where your spot is, and then from there, what we've done to solve the problem is I'll charge people for the first week on the job site, and then I'll tell them, so like, if you want to be paid on Monday instead of paying on Monday, then I'll let me know on Monday that you start, and I'll tell you on Friday if you're getting paid or if you're still paying, and then that's your job interview. Okay, and then that saves me from figuring that out throughout the week. And then, so those types of apprentice scenarios are what's going on. And then we've also positioned ourselves to do the professional designation training, like continuing education for architects. It's newly published into code. There's 2024, the IRC code that came out 2024. There has an appendix for it. Now, if you're a seasoned building professional and you read that whole code, you might not know what you read. And so it's good I equate it to we talked about the TikTokification of everything. I equate our continuing education course as an unboxing video. It's like you're going to take it out of the box, and then this is what we've got. And so this is what it does when it does this. This is what it does over here. And then we take it out of the box, but you get the CE credits that go along with that for your professional designations.
Say your website again. I think people are going to want to go check this out.
Hempbuildschool.com, and then there's the community that's a part of hempbuildmag.com, and then that's where there's a lot of very curated journalistic articles covering the whole industry. But there's a community on there to where you can introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm building an off-grid cabin in the mountains, and then you'll meet your people. Or I'm a production builder and we want a better way to do this in a development that's focused on sustainability, but we're in a seismic zone or we're in a hurricane-prone zone. And then you'll find your people on there and you'll network and connect. And then that community is a very powerful tool because that's where we're missing that genuine connection. That's why things like this are fun. It's fun to talk to somebody like yourself and meet up with somebody that speaks your real estate investment language. It's kind of like when you're traveling abroad and you find somebody that speaks your own language. You like to connect, and I think that's something that is sorely missing in our society. And then that's where people really do enjoy that connection that comes from it. And it's something simple like a building material.
Beautiful. Ray, thank you so much. So Ray with Hemp Build Network. And how do I say your last name? Kaderli, Ray Kaderli with Hemp Build Network. And Kaderli is Kaderli, guys, if you are trying to find him and do a little research. And hempbuild.com, I believe, is your website.
Hemp Build School is and then the network. And I live on LinkedIn. There's not many Kaderlis with my name. It's Clifton Ray Kaderli.
True. You're not hard to find. Ray, thank you so very much. Thank you. This is Christina Suter with Real Estate Breakthrough. Thank you, Ray, for your time. I love being able to bring new knowledge to my listeners. And please, guys, reach out to Ray. This is an exciting product that I'm hoping will get deeper and deeper in our construction. We covered early the amount of boxes that it checks and how successful it is in being able to move construction forward in a way that is both eco and economic and durable. So thank you, Ray. So appreciate it. Don't leave, by the way, Ray. When I hang up, don't...